What is up, everybody? It's the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7, and with me, Rusty Mansell, also of Dogs 24/7. We've got Kip on special assignment. He's picking up the slack for me while I am still quarantined because of COVID in the Rowe household. For those of you that didn't know, everybody's fine. Everybody's great. There are no symptoms in this house anymore, but abundance of caution, whatever. And Kip is actually going to go up to UGA for us today and look at practice viewing. Yeah, so Kip's going to get to see a little bit of practice. He's going to by the time the day's over with, Rusty, Kip's going to have tied me on number of practices that we've seen this year. Kip won, Jake won.
Last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kip will have seen as many practices and one opportunity as I've seen in the past. Almost 2 years, to be honest with you. We barely got to see any at the end of the 2019 season. But we're gonna talk a little bit about the Arkansas game. Rusty did not get a chance to join us for the show after the game. Want to get his thoughts on that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what Kirby said today in his press conference and a little bit of a preview on Auburn. Rusty, let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. What did you think of the Arkansas game?
Physicality from the start. You know, I said last week on the pod, I think we all agreed. We all kind of mentioned it in some shape, fashion, or form. If Georgia can run the ball against Arkansas, they're in trouble. And they were in trouble. They 3 down linemen, just you got to bring somebody every place. You kind of disguise that. But the problem was those 3 guys have to really hold their gaps and those things. They were getting moved. Georgia was recreating the line of scrimmage. You see, a lot of guys getting knocked back and just really – Georgia just really took it to Arkansas. And I think Sam Pittman after the game just said, look, I think that was the best description, bully ball. And Georgia pushed them around. Look, they came out firing a little bit with Stetson Bennett and threw the ball in some areas and stuff. But I think as the game went on, and especially when you get a special teams touchdown for Georgia to add to that defense, man, the game plan for Georgia changed pretty quick. And that was, we're going to run this ball down your throat and we're going to grind this clock out and we're going to get this win today.
Man, there's no doubt about it. And the thing that spoke to me, Rusty, more than anything, listen, I know Stetson Bennett was the quarterback and we're going to get into JT Daniels just here a little bit later. But the thing that spoke to me about that game was just doing what, the late Trevor Moawad, the title of his book, and he was a guy that worked with Kirby over and over. It takes what it takes. And Georgia took on a new identity this week offensively, and they were able to exploit what Arkansas does. And to me, Rusty, I think that Georgia has kind of struggled to do that since that 2017 season. Listen, for all you want to say about Jake Fromm and the limitations or whatever, but Georgia came out against Missouri that season when Missouri was scoring. All right, Georgia was kind of struggling to run the football like it wanted to run the football earlier in that game. Jake Fromm comes out and throws for 300 yards, okay? That team was able to kind of take on an identity week in and week out for the most part and get where it needed to go. Do you take anything from that, Russ? I mean, I know I did. I just kind of wanted to get your take on it about the whole, it takes what it takes and figuring out a new way, not just to win, but to dominate for the 4th game in a row.
Well, unfortunately for Arkansas, Georgia is very comfortable running the football. I mean, physicality played right into it. I mean, Arkansas, we all wanted to know how Barry Odom was going to play Georgia. Now, how Barry Odom played Mississippi State last year in week 2 and how Barry Odom played Ole Miss last year against completely dominating passing teams was he dropped 6 and he dropped 7. Well, we didn't know what he was going to do against this. And then you put in the variable of Stetson Bennett. So what's he going to do? How's he going to play him? Are they going to crowd the box and make Stetson Bennett beat him? They pretty much went with what they do, and that's they dropped some guys. They had 3 down linemen, and I think people want to see this, want to see that. End of the day, Georgia had 37 points at the end on a top 10 matchup, and the other team had 0, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close for 10 minutes. I could tell you from sitting up there, by the way, Jay, you got a great seat every single week in the press box. My goodness. You enjoy that look for a while because that's going to be mega suites sooner than later there. But you can just really see it unfolding, what Georgia was doing to them. And then when you take the dominating performance from the defense. So I understand people want to see, let's just throw it around and get 50 and just dominate teams. Well, Georgia dominated 37-0, and they did what they needed to do. And unfortunately for Arkansas, it was a game plan that Georgia can do extremely good, and that is suffocate you and run the ball down your throat. If you can't stop it, you're just going to keep getting it. So it doesn't mean it's the game plan for every week, but it was the best and it was the absolutely right choice how to attack Arkansas this weekend, especially, Jake, after they go up 21-0. You saw some things change, and they really started pounding the rock.
There are two things I want to mention here, Rusty, and it's this. Alabama went over. Okay, Alabama's the standard. Okay, Alabama is who you're chasing in this game. That's just the way it is. And if you want to compare what you got to do to what Alabama ran the football 50 times against Ole Miss on Saturday. All right, they ran more plays than Georgia did. They threw the ball more than Georgia did, and they scored a little bit more than Georgia did. But they ran the ball 50 times. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with doing that. Number two, for those who want to kind of pound the drum, and we talked about it on the board. I had a conversation about it over at the Junkyard with some guys about this. If you want to pound the table about, in a 37-0 game, Stetson throwing the ball more because he needs more reps. He has over 200 pass attempts in his career, but let's just for a second imagine he just needs more and he's going to get better with more. Or Carson Beck needs to be in there throwing the ball. Georgia's in a situation right now, Rustin, this is going to provide us with an incredible transition here. Georgia's in a situation right now, they've got 7 healthy scholarship wide receivers. One of those wide receivers, Jalen Johnson, used to be a walk-on. Another of those wide receivers is not even a prime time, crunch time contributor in Jackson Meeks. He's a freshman who's playing some catch-up. And then the other is a guy who's not 100% healthy in Kearis Jackson. So you could whittle that list down to 4, which is Lab McConkey, Jermaine Burton, Adonai Mitchell. I keep saying that, and I just hear people like criticizing me the way I say it.
Better go AD.
AD Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell. Okay, that's the way he said it on the jumbotron at Sanford Stadium, and Justin Robinson. That's where Georgia's at. So let me ask you this: Kirby's got 7 scholarship wide receivers. They're limited to dressing out 80 players for a home game, 70 players for the Vanderbilt game. Who are you going to run out there and throw it to? You're going to throw it to one of those healthy 7 wide receivers with a 37-point lead? No, you're not. You're going to try to get the heck out of there with healthy wide receivers and try to get some other guys healthy and get to that point. And that's something he talked about today in today's press conference. He talked about the receiver position and some guys they're trying to get healthy. Rusty, how big is it? Because Kirby said, listen, Dominic Blaylock, Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, who's only missed 1 game. He was there for the first 4, practiced some last week, but was not available for Arkansas. And Arian Smith, who's missed the last 3 games with a shin injury that I'm telling you guys, from the word I'm hearing from behind the scenes, not like it's going to keep him out for the rest of the year, but it has been very painful and very tough to get rid of, okay? Those 3 guys, Rusty, how important is it that they get them back? Because Kirby says they're all 3 going to give it a go.
You got to get reps. You got to get live reps. You can simulate everything you want. You can do all this and do all that. There's a reason why 95% of the teams see the most improvement between week 1 and week 2. Because you don't know how kids are going to play week 1 when it's live action, live bullets. You get some tape. They know what they need to work on. You know what they need to work on. You've seen it, so you can correct those things. So, Kirby needs to see this offense with those guys in there. You need to see your full, what you got available as of right now. Those guys need to get in and get Dominique Blaylock. First time in a long time for some reps for him. Need to get him back in. Mitchell, I agree. You got to get him back in. You got to get Marcus Rosemy, St. Jack back in, and you got to get Arian Smith back in for that what he creates and the speed and the threat he brings. So you want to get those guys in because, look, this is Auburn. You're a 14.5-point favorite, but you're going into a hostile environment. And then, oh, by the way, you got Kentucky, who just beat Florida, who's undefeated currently, coming in. And then you got Florida at the end of the month. So, you want to get these guys in and get as many reps as you can for this second half of the season because it's going to be very important as these games get more and more critical each week.
Ranktober in Athens, Georgia, man. Everybody's ranked in the month of October. It's going to be shocking if they're not. I know Florida has to play LSU on the 16th, and that's a game that might be losable there. They lose that one, they're going to be out of the rankings there, but Florida's still Florida, and that's still a big-time rivalry. Kentucky lose to LSU this week or not. they're gonna have to get it going. I just now realized, Rusty, Georgia's going to play 3 straight teams coming off an LSU game. Florida will have the extra week, but Kentucky will have played LSU this week, and then Auburn played LSU last week. That's kind of interesting to look at there. But yeah, ranked over in Athens, and there's a lot of ranked opponents. There's a lot of good teams Georgia's going to have to play. Getting those guys healthy is important. Getting JT Daniels healthy is also important. Kirby Smart had some comments on JT today, but we're going to tease that one. Give us about 30 seconds, and we'll get back to you on that. Let's take a break. All right, Rusty, Kirby kind of laid out a plan. Okay. He said that JT is not going to practice today, Monday. He's not going to go today. But they are hopeful that he's going to be able to go Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even beyond that. He was on again, off again last week. Did a little bit, did some stuff on Monday, didn't do hardly anything on Tuesday, did something on Wednesday, didn't do very much on Thursday. So that was kind of how last week went. How do you is it Rusty, to you, is it the balancing act that it seems like for me that, all right, got to get this guy back, but got to get this guy healthy? I don't envy the position Georgia's in right here, or the position JT Daniels is in, because, as a competitor, he's wanting to go out there, but at the same time, grade 1 lat strain turns into grade 2 lat strain, which is some torn muscle fibers. Grade 3 lat strain is a complete rupture of the muscle. He's gone for the season at that point, at least for a few months. So the balancing act, man, how difficult can this be?
The best thing for Georgia is JT Daniels can do mental reps, because he's so smart. I mean, he's such a high football IQ. And everybody you talk to is about, this is what this kid, this is his advantage. He's great in the film room. He picks up things quick. You can't fool him really on the field. So, he can take a lot of mental reps and be in the huddle and just walk up to the line of scrimmage and look and call out plays and those types of things. Georgia's kind of in the spot where they don't have a choice, man. There's no other – you can do all the therapy in the world you want to do, but right now the best thing for him is rest. So you have him in there. You do whatever treatment you can possibly do with this thing and rest him and let him know the game plan. He sits in every meeting. He goes to every single practice. And at the end of the week, if he feels good and can do it, people don't realize how many NFL quarterbacks that don't practice during the week, when they're banged up. I mean, those guys, they know, they've seen these defenses a million times. They know what to expect, those types of things. So I think with this situation, it's not so much of a go into panic mode. What you want to know is how quickly he can get back to being able to play in a pain tolerance that he can feel comfortable of playing and delivering and being your best option. Right now, my vibe is it's going to take a little bit of time. Will he play this weekend? I don't know, because I don't know how his body's going to react the rest of the week. But I don't think you really worry on him being prepared, because JT Daniels can look at a game plan and he can sit in that film room and know exactly what you want to do, know exactly what Auburn's doing, know exactly how you want to attack them. So that's the advantage of him. He is very, very high football IQ. You just want to know where he is physically, and can he get to that point to where he's your best option on the weekend.
Yeah, and one of the things I keep getting when I talk with people about this, and I shared this with you yesterday, Rusty, we were talking, was, when you have an injury like this, whenever it's where this one is, I mean, this is like a hamstring injury for a wide receiver, defensive back. This is like a foot injury or a knee injury for an offensive lineman. It's like you need the muscle, the lat muscle, you need that to be able to rotate and to put power, and JT's kind of lost some power with that. He's kind of lost some confidence with that. I mean, you're sitting there thinking about it. Hey, this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And the harder, the more effort, the more energy you exert to push the ball downfield, it's going to hurt worse. I think every human body, there are very few human bodies out there that are going to be like, well, going to do it anyway. It's something you naturally do.
I tell you this, I filled in for you Saturday. So I went on the field. And I'm standing there, and he comes out last. And that's not a big deal. Sometimes he does, or what, of all the quarterbacks. Stetson Bennett's out there taking reps. Brock Vandergrift's taking reps. JT Daniels comes out, and he throws about 15 or 20 balls, and he goes back in. The next time I see JT Daniels, he's in his pads, and he comes out in this very small rep. So, that kind of told me right then. And then we saw Stetson warming up behind Cedric Van Pran at center. I knew right then that he was not starting, and there's a little bit more. But he threw Jake probably about 15 passes, about 10 yards, and it wasn't like they were zipping. I mean, he just kind of like you're tossing with your son out in the backyard, doing those type of things where the other quarterbacks were really getting into deliveries and those type of things. So, I'm not going to speculate, but I can tell you right now, he was not even close to playing on Saturday.
Yeah, and they were actually, sometimes you get to see some things from home that I don't normally get to see. They put the camera on his face. The game day crew did there with that little countdown, and he was grimacing. I mean, you could tell he was hurting a little bit. And we'll see how it goes. The thing that Georgia's got a few things it's got to guard against here. They've got to guard against the injury getting worse. They've got to guard against it being an issue in week 12 as well. They want to put it behind them, but they've also got to guard against some good football teams they're playing in the month of October. And this big one on the road against Auburn. I think if the best thing you could hope for as a Georgia fan, just big picture, I think, Rusty, is to get him back in a spot to where you can do everything you possibly can to rest him and keep him from having to go, but maybe having him to go if you need him to. Like if you go out there and Georgia's winning 7-3 in the fourth quarter against Auburn, or at 7-7 in the fourth quarter against Auburn, and Stetson's just struggling. Listen, I'm not saying I expect that. I'm just saying this is life. It's reality. Everything, lots of things can happen. That JT could kind of come in and give the team a spark, and without maybe making it worse. And I think maybe that's one of the better things you could hope. I mean, best thing you can hope for right now is he wakes up in the morning. It's never a problem again. But we'll see if it actually gets to that point. And Kirby said they're scanning it. They're testing it. They're doing everything they possibly can every day, treating it aggressively. And we'll see how it goes because Dak Prescott was able to come back from his in a few weeks. And Kirby has kind of compared it to that, saying also that it's a little less severe. But that's something we've got to keep an eye on there, and it'll be interesting to hear what Kirby has to say tomorrow night and what we're hearing as the week goes along, because it's not easy information to come by. Let's look ahead a little bit to this Auburn game, Rusty, and I've got one big concern about this game, and I can hear the folks on the Junkyard right now because they've got supreme confidence in this Georgia football team. This Georgia football team is going to double every point spread from here on out for the rest of the season. Rusty, I'm concerned about Stetson Bennett. If Stetson Bennett has to start this game, first time he's played in anything close to an environment like he's going to play in Saturday, because that Auburn crew is going to be juiced after beating LSU for the first time since 1999 in Baton Rouge. Is that a concern for you?
When you said that, I was thinking, well, this guy's played at Arkansas, this guy's played at Alabama, but I didn't realize that he hasn't played in front of a full capacity place. And you want to talk about rocking and rolling Jordan Hare, that place can get unhinged in a
that Alabama game was pretty live, but again, it wasn't 90,000+ people.
No. So you're right. It's the first time he's done it, but he's played a lot of football games, man. I mean, and here, look, this kid, they just put him in like, Stetson, we need you, buddy. So come on. And he kind of knows his role, I think, and he just does his thing. And I don't think he's going to be too rattled, but that is worthy to mention. That's a good get by you there. I mean, a good recognition there by you, Jake, is that this is the first big one. And anybody that's been to Auburn before, that place can get rocking in a hurry. I was down there in 2017 when they played Georgia the first time, and I'm telling you, man, that was as loud as anything I've ever heard anywhere. And I've been to a lot of stadiums, so I know the capability of that. It's still Georgia Auburn, regardless. They know that they could really put a hurt on Georgia's season if they were to upset Georgia right here as a 2-touchdown underdog going into this thing. So that's something to note and worthy. We'll see how it goes. But if Stetson is the guy on Saturday, I fully expect him not to be too rattled with that and be able to play his game.
5 games into the season, Auburn's hopes are still alive too. I mean, they've lost 1 game to a top 10 team. Now, I mean, say what you want about the Georgia State game, they got out of it. Okay,
Yep.
they got out of that thing. I assume Auburn will show up and play better football than they played against Georgia State. There's a lot of familiarity with these staffs, and obviously you got Demetrius Robertson over there playing for Auburn, and it'll be good to see Demetrius play. Always been a big fan of him as a person. There's just a lot going on here. Deep South's oldest rivalry, 126th matchup between these two teams, and I don't know what in the world's going on with my light over here, but it is trying its best to blind me.
I mean,
it kicked into another gear over here. It's going to burn my face off here in a minute. But yeah, this is a big one, man. And I think, listen, I once again, I'm going to say it for another week, Rusty, and I want to get your opinion on this before we go. Auburn offense in for another. A lot of teams are going to be a tough matchup against this Georgia defense. But again, when you talk about wanting to run the football and do that first, I think Georgia's a really tough matchup for this Auburn offense.
What scares you the most for Georgia is Bo Nix, because how much of an athlete he is. And look, he didn't play great against Georgia State, but he rebounded. He made 2 unbelievable plays against LSU to score a touchdown and convert a big 3rd down. So, this guy is such a good athlete. I was told that he has the fastest GPS times at Auburn during practice. I do not doubt that a bit. I know he's a big-time athlete, strong arm kid, just hasn't really clicked much, but you start seeing some of those flashes against LSU, and that really worries you. So I'll tell you this. I went back and watched the game last night, and from last year, I watched the first 3 quarters. Adam Anderson gave them fits. Adam Anderson gave both of their tackles fits, and they've moved Brodarius Ham over to right tackle, I believe. So he'll get a lot of more of Adam Anderson with Nolan Smith on the other side as well. So there's some matchup problems that Auburn knows. They've already seen this on tape. So Georgia really got after Bo Nix last year. So it'd be interesting to see how they combat that. Maybe some quick timing, some quick passing game, that type of thing. So it is what it is. And Georgia's ranked number 2 in the country, and they're a 2 touchdown favorite for this reason. But we'll see how Auburn attacks Georgia there. But from the part you're talking about, I think the thing that will worry the most for Georgia is this is the most dynamic quarterback they have played so far, in my opinion. He can really, really hurt you with his legs and extending plays. So you got to know where he is, and that spy in the middle, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, those guys have to get him to the ground.
That's right. And they'll use Channing Tindall, and they'll use Adam Anderson. They'll use them all. And Georgia has the athletes to keep up, but it's all about playing well. It's all about those 1 or 2 plays. Are you going to make them, or are they going to make them? And listen, we're going to be back with you later on this week. Wednesday, we'll have a mailbag show. Thursday, we'll have our picks. But for this episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, I'm Jake Rowe with Dogs 24/7. He's Rusty Mansell from the same place. Y'all take it easy.